Hello and welcome to the Feck It Fun, Fabulous and Free Eating Disorder Recovery podcast. I'm Helly and I'm here to provide regular bursts of information and inspiration, some neuroscience applicable to eating disorder recovery, perhaps a few rants, but otherwise lots of positivity with a bit of a feck it attitude, some fun and a sprinkling of fabulousness to help everyone find freedom in recovery. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Feck It Fun, Fabulous and Free Eating Disorder Recovery podcast. I'm Helly and as you know, I talk about eating disorders, how to overcome them and bash them out of your life so that you can achieve the free life that you very much deserve to have, that's completely free of restricted eating, that's completely free of compensatory behaviours, obsessions, addictions, living a controlled, rigid and miserable existence. So that you can go and eat unrestrictedly into your future, don't have to compensate for your eating, can let your body be the fabulous weight, shape and size that it was always supposed to be, and can be free and happy, living in just that way. It is possible and it's possible for you as well, so never believe that it's not. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about what I call the pendulum effect in eating disorder recovery. What I mean by that is that overcoming an eating disorder can feel like it's a bit like being on a pendulum swing. So it can feel like you are swinging from one extreme to another in all kinds of ways, where the pendulum is tightly pulled by the eating disorder in one direction and has been for what might be years, might be decades, through restrictive eating, compensatory behaviours, and the build-up of energy deficit. And once you release that control the eating disorder has over you in all those ways, then that pendulum can swing rapidly to the other extreme before it ultimately settles at a middle ground of what might be considered homeostasis or an eating disorder-free and healthy normality, whatever that looks like for you when you find it. So let's imagine then a pendulum. So it's like you've got the pendulum swing, so it's swinging in extreme ways to the left, and then it rapidly might swing all the way to the right, until eventually it will come down and drop and rest in the middle. So if you can imagine this pendulum effect in eating disorder recovery, it can help maybe make you a little less anxious because you feel like you're going to the other extreme when you're in recovery from an eating disorder. And you can use this mental image of a pendulum to reassure yourself that this pendulum effect is very normal when you are overcoming an eating disorder. And that if you go with it and you let yourself swing to what might feel like recovery extremes, then all will be good and you, like so many others have, will find your unique natural middle point of eating disorder-free life. So in this episode then, what I'm going to do is talk about each extreme on the pendulum swing in relation to the eating disorder and what it means to find your middle ground of normality and freedom. So if you imagine then you're looking at the pendulum and it's facing you and it's being pulled at the moment to the far left of centre. So the pendulum is being held up to the far left of centre. So if the space where the pendulum is hanging peacefully in the centre can be considered to be homeostasis, which is a state of mental, physical and emotional stability with very little conscious effort or influence needed to maintain that, then the pendulum being held to the far left of centre is the pull of the eating disorder. So when the eating disorder is pulling you on the pendulum to the far left, you will experience some or all of the following situations in your life. And that is restrictive eating, which can be in amount, it can be in types of food you're eating, It can be in the times of day you'll let yourself eat. It can be through compulsive exercise, compulsive lower level movement, the inability to just rest and relax. Compensatory behaviours that are also very compulsive. It's through a state of semi-starvation and energy deficit maintained at a weight below your set point, which, if you go back and listen to the episode about eating disorders, not having a look and eating disorders being in any size body, then you'll understand that being in that physical state of semi-starvation and energy deficit doesn't mean that your BMI is necessarily at a very low level by BMI chart, but that you are below your genetic set point range and the BMI you should be at for your body's health. And when you're being pulled to the far left by the eating disorder, you'll often feel emotionally very numb. You'll have little experience of joy or pleasure in your life, and often feel disconnected from yourself and or from others around you. You're very likely to be prone to rigid behaviours, hard to break routines, rituals, or a need for control in your day-to-day life. You might feel physically cold a lot of the time and have a constant drive to be doing, and find empty time and empty space in your days very difficult to tolerate. And at the same time, a lot of people have a very false sense of energy, feeling constantly that they've got a lot of energy and they constantly have to be on the go and be doing, which is all coming from the eating disorder. And of course, then there's the food obsession with related thoughts and behaviours related to being obsessed by food. And of course, being obsessed by food is a natural reaction to a brain and a body that's in energy deficit and that isn't getting enough food. So I'm sure that if you have a restrictive eating disorder, then you can relate to many of the things on that list, and perhaps can begin to recognise how much the eating disorder is pulling you from what could be your happy middle ground at the moment. But when you make the brave decision that you are done with the eating disorder and you are going to do all you can to get that eating disorder out of your life and bash it hard, whether you use abstinence or moderation to do that, and you'll understand what I mean by that if you've listened to my earlier episodes, then as you start to eat more and give up some of the other behaviours, changing your routines and rigid habits as you do so, it can feel like your pendulum suddenly swings rapidly, not to centre, as you might have liked, but to the far right of that happy middle ground. And this is when the process to overcome an eating disorder can feel terrifying, and you might feel that you have lost control, particularly if you weren't expecting some of the changes that can rapidly set in when the eating disorder is actually losing its control over you, and you're getting your control back from it. So let's consider then what happens when the pendulum swings rapidly from the far left through centre and all the way to the far right when you begin to abstain from the eating disorder. So once you begin to eat a bit more, you rest more, and you stop some of the other eating disorder behaviours, it can feel that the pendulum the eating disorder was holding to that far left has just gone to the other extreme, as I said. And that can involve suddenly getting very high hunger levels, beyond levels that you've allowed yourself to recognise before. And that can lead to excessive urges to eat. And that can involve actual binges or extreme hunger, driving you to want to eat up to 10,000 calories or more a day at times. And that's a normal physiological response to semi-starvation and energy deficit that you should listen and respond to, because it can feel alarming when you're going through it. But that's okay. You can go through it and you will get through it. You'll also possibly experience very extreme levels of exhaustion and body pains and other symptoms. When you're being pulled by the eating disorder to the far left of centre, you can feel as if you have high energy and even few physical ailments. But when you let the eating disorder go and begin to eat and rest more, then suddenly you can be hit by a wall of exhaustion alongside other physical aches, pains and symptoms. But that is completely normal, and it does settle. But when it happens, it can reinforce those thoughts that you have that you're doing something wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. Listen to the symptoms and allow complete rest so that you can heal physically and mentally. The other thing that of course can set in as you allow yourself to eat and rest is the weight gain, which can then be uncomfortable, especially if you held a belief that you are scared of weight gain and that belief was maintaining the eating disorder. And emerging from energy deficit, which needs to happen if you want to overcome the eating disorder, which of course means weight gain, and it does mean often having to go into fat overshoot, because that is a necessary part of allowing your body to fully heal, repair and restore, to ultimately then be able to find that happy middle ground of energy balance. But unless you allow the fat overshoot, your body can't then get to that point of energy balance that it wants to sit at to be optimally healthy for you. You can also find as your pendulum swings to the other direction that suddenly you're getting real extremes in your emotions of highs as well as lows. So you might get exhilaration at being allowed to eat and rest again, and a return of positive emotions and the ability to experience genuine laughter once more as you emerge from energy deficit and let the addiction go. But there can also be times of real low lows, to the point of depression symptoms for some, high levels of anxiety and agitation. But those emotional extremes are normal, although they can be even harder to manage when you've been so used to living in relative numbness for a long time within the eating disorder. And as you're overcoming the eating disorder and you're swinging to that other extreme, then you can also find that small things become overwhelming, and the process to overcoming the eating disorder can be mentally exhausting, to the point that things you did with ease during the eating disorder, like working or academic pursuits, feel much harder to focus on or maintain in the way that you could when you were so tightly rigid and controlled within the eating disorder. But again, that's a normal response, and it's a short-term response to a brain that just needs a lot of mental energy and focus right now to reprogram from the eating disorder and build new neural pathways and networks, which we often talk about as rewiring. And the ability to focus on work and other life pursuits in such amazing ways will come back when you have fully overcome the eating disorder. So give yourself the mental space to do that. Let the work and the academic pursuits go as much as you need to focus on overcoming the eating disorder. Give your brain the space it needs to do that and to rewire. And then your life will be incredible when you reach that happy middle ground of being able to focus on all the incredible things you really want to focus on. And so yes, everything involved in overcoming the eating disorder, whether that's eating more, resting, giving up other rituals and habits, as well as gaining weight, can feel chaotic, it can feel extreme, it can feel overwhelming and wrong when you're going through it. Because suddenly your tightly controlled and routine-driven life that felt safe within the eating disorder is now feeling messy and out of control. But hold on, because the truth is that you finally gaining control is what's happening now. It feels out of control, but this is you gaining your control back from the eating disorder, and that is what needs to happen. So with the process to overcome the eating disorder, you will have started at the extreme left of centre on that pendulum, in a space that the eating disorder has held you for an extensive period of time. And when you started to let the eating disorder go, that pendulum has now rapidly swung you in the complete opposite direction, so that you now find yourself to the far right of that middle ground. So now you're at that far right, what do you do? Well, as I said, now is the time to just hold on. Stay to the right of that central point as long as you need to. Eat to the extreme levels of hunger that might be there, no matter how high that hunger goes, how high that hunger takes your intake. Rest to address all the exhaustion and let the compulsive behaviours and need to control your eating and your body weight and shape go. Allow your body to heal, to restore and repair, aiming for overshoot and emerging fully and completely from energy deficit. Feel the emotions that arise and learn to not run from them, but sit with and process them. Emotions are normal human responses and reactions. Emotions are what make us feel like humans again. Let yourself feel the emotions and go through them, whether they're good ones or bad ones. And let it feel messy. Let it be messy. Eating disorders keep us so tightly, rigidly controlled and compulsively driven in boring existence of compulsive obsessiveness that you need to allow life to be messy again. Because that's what life should be. Life should be messy. Let it be messy. Let overcoming the eating disorder feel messy. Because that's all absolutely normal and okay. This is about getting your life back, reclaiming your control from the eating disorder and healing. And nothing good in life comes without making a bit of mess in the process. When your body and brain are ready, your pendulum will naturally find that middle ground without you needing to do anything other than keep tuning into your natural body signals and responding. And that's when you reach the space of whatever homeostasis and equilibrium looks like for you in your future. So as you finally emerge from energy deficit, having reprogrammed your brain from the eating disorder in the process, you will find that your body, your hunger levels, your thoughts, behaviours, emotions, and energy balance all come to settle in the middle space of what might be considered your normality. And that's when your pendulum finds that happy resting middle ground. And so this is when your hunger cues will become reliable and at a level that is good, but not extreme to either end of the hunger spectrum, as you naturally now are able to recognize your hunger signs and respond to them without judgment or overthinking, and just eat without any restriction to a level that's good but not extreme. And that settling hunger enables you to eat freely, happily and securely, enjoying food without guilt, shame or regret, and with pleasure to meet all your hunger at a level at which you feel satisfied. You no longer feel that you are depriving yourself or that you are overeating in any way. And this is when your energy levels will normalize. You find you're able to rest whenever you want to, and that you can move your body for pleasure when you want to, but not because of any sense of compulsion to do so. And your body achieves a state of energy balance. You are finally fully out of energy deficit, and you have fully restored your fat and lean tissue stores to the level that your brain and body recognize as necessary to be safely at your genetic set point level. Your body weight, shape and size settle at a level that is consistent and that you need to make no conscious effort to maintain that. The level that's right for you and optimal for your mental and physical health is where your body will just sit naturally and you just eat and rest however much you want to, and your body will just sit there and maintain that natural energy balance state for you. And this is when your mood becomes a lot more stable, with fewer lows and much less anxiety. And you become able to experience pleasure from the small things in life. You're able to experience genuine belly laughs, laugh until you cry at times, feel more connected to others, yourself and the world, than you can remember having been able to before or for a very long time, and you will be so grateful for that. Overall, you'll become able to feel and experience life's ups and downs in ways that feel remarkable, and you just feel more human because of it. And life feels more possible than ever before, and you feel more able to live authentically to your true wants and needs than most people ever can. So overcoming an eating disorder can necessitate allowing yourself to ride that pendulum swing from one extreme within the eating disorder to the other extreme for a while in order to naturally find the middle ground. And sometimes with an eating disorder or any form of addiction, we can only gain perspective on how we were living and how disordered it was when we have removed ourselves from that way of being in an extreme way to the other end of the extreme spectrum, which with an eating disorder means full abstinence from restriction, from the compensatory behaviours, from holding yourself in energy deficit. And sometimes you need to hold yourself to that other extreme for a necessary period of time to gain that perspective and to allow your brain and body to heal. And that perspective gained can then be very valuable to motivate you to continue on the path of giving the eating disorder and addictive behaviours up in full and persisting at doing that until that middle ground of eating disorder and addiction-free life is realised. It feels like a crazy ride when you're on the pendulum swing of finding freedom from the eating disorder, but hold on tight and ride on through, as I'm pretty darn sure it will be worth it. Allow yourself to ride that pendulum swing. Feel the exhilaration as you're riding it. Allow it to feel chaotic and crazy and messy, and just go with it, with pride, with exhilaration, because this is you finding your happy middle ground eventually, and a free life that will be truly yours, that you can live with authenticity. So I hope that's helped. Imagine yourself on that pendulum, swinging yourself from the eating disorder to the other extreme, and just go with it. Let yourself eat, let yourself rest, let your body do what it needs to do to heal for you. And just be proud that you are giving up the eating disorder, because that's such a hard thing to do. It feels horrible while you're going through it. But you are doing it, and you can do it, and you will get through this. You will find your eating disorder-free life, and it will be worth it when you do. If you want to know more about me, you'll find me on hellybarnes.com, and you'll find out about my 2 books, which are called Addicted to Energy Deficit and Aiming for Overshoot, with a lot more information about my books on my website, or you'll find the books to buy on Amazon and a lot of other online book retailers around the world, so please feel free to grab a copy if you think they might help you. Otherwise, I'll speak to you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Feck It Fun, Fabulous and Free Eating Disorder Recovery podcast. Don't forget, eating disorder recovery doesn't have to be boring and doesn't have to be serious. Now go and grab yourself some food and have a fabulous rest of the day.